To hear this and many more audiobooks not available on YouTube in a podcast feed, please visit the first link in the description below, and thank you for your support. America Against America by Wang Huning, Chapter 8, Soft Governance. Section 1, Driver's License. There are two basic approaches to managing or governing a society. One is political governance, and the other is technical governance. By soft governance, we mean that the society develops an effective mechanism to govern the society through economic, cultural, customary, and legal means. Governance by politics, with more power application and coercion, increases the burden and responsibility of the political and administrative system. If the political and administrative system can take away a large part of the responsibility and make the affairs that should be governed, then the society has a more mature management system. Contradictions and conflicts arising from political governance would be reduced accordingly. American society is a privately owned capitalist society that by design and by the power of capital itself has developed a set of soft governance methods that constitute a condition for the stability of this society. In the United States, there is no special ID card issued to citizens. What is commonly used by Americans to prove their identity is a driver's license. Most adults in the United States have a driver's license. If you do not have a driver's license, you can go to the driver's license department and get a document that is the same as a driver's license and cannot be used to drive, but can be used to prove your identity. You can show it when you need to verify your identity, e.g., to write a check. All public and private sectors have agreed to recognize this as the norm. I went to apply for a driver's license to prove my identity. I called and asked for a driver's license, and the answer was yes, so I went there with my passport and saw that it was the State Department of Transportation office. This kind of thing is generally under the control of the state government. There were quite a few people applying there. I waited in line for 10 minutes. The officer didn't have any other questions, so I opened my passport and showed her my name. Asked about my height and weight, looked at the color of my eyes, wrote down my birthday, and I was done. Then I went to the next desk to verify it, then moved to the next desk, entered it into their computer, and collected the $5. This office worker took about a minute. The next person took out a printed sheet with my gender, eye color, weight, body height, date of issue, birthday, and address, number, and then gave me a signature. After signing, I sat down on a chair next to the photo, which only took 1 or 2 minutes. The third clerk told me to sit and wait for a while, saying that the photos should be developed. After waiting for 2 minutes, he brought the license, the photo, and all the data mentioned earlier printed on a small card and sealed it in a plastic case. 5 to 8 minutes total. This license can be used as an ID card and is valid throughout the United States. No one asked me why I needed this ID card. No one said that a foreigner could not get one either. I was discussing this phenomenon with a professor in the political science department at the University of Iowa. He said it's tradition. Americans don't like the government controlling them and absolutely cannot understand why the government gives everyone a number. In fact, every American who applies for a job, even foreigners, have a social security number given by the federal government's tax office. The practice varies from country to country under different political cultures. For example, the French government gives a number to every baby at birth. Americans need documents because they need them in their own lives, such as for banking, paying bills, or driving a vehicle. Where are such documents issued? The most common is the Department of Transportation because it is difficult to live in the United States for long periods of time without a car. He said Americans could never accept the police department issuing documents which would give the police department too much power. In fact, the computer system is so advanced that the police department can easily use the personal data about citizens stored by the Department of Transportation and even various other agencies. I'm afraid that anywhere you go, the police department has a way to find out what's going on through the computer based on your license. I was reminded of a scholar who returned to the United States the year before last and told me that once he left his state for a visit, his host arranged to visit a county police department, and the police department showed him the computer system. The police chief, who accompanied him, asked him for this license, entered the relevant number into the computer, and immediately showed his details on the computer screen, including age, nationality, date of birth, occupation, and whether he had a criminal record, which amazed him. Regardless, It is a very interesting political and cultural phenomenon that the Department of Transportation issues ID cards and not the police department. It shows the wariness that Americans have of a coercive department like the police department. The fact that the head of the county police agency is elected, not appointed, is also indicative of a desire to constrain its power. The Transportation Department does not ask any more questions about this type of document, but only requires the applicant to show proper documentation to prove that he or she is over 18 years of age. For applications under 18, parental consent is required. The department that handles this ID can accept a variety of documents: licenses from other states, copies or originals of birth certificates, passports, immigration documents, insurance documents, etc. They only need these documents to see the applicant's name and birth. Americans protect their psychological security at all times. As you can see from the previous analysis, this is only a psychological feeling because the police department has full access to information through the computer system, but the eternal idea of this psychological feeling should be seen as an enduring force in political life. The real question is how to make the people feel at ease and how to make the government manageable. It is clear from the procedure for obtaining such identity cards or driver's licenses that what is important here is not which department issues them, but that each person has an identity card. The government's computer system has data on the citizens' situations. Any government department can still use this data whenever it is needed. In short, although apparently uncontrolled, society is naturally under strict control of the government. The government has woven this network without deliberately emphasizing that it is the responsibility of the police department, but rather that it is a service to the public. The issuance of a driver's license can be used as a driving license and an ID card, killing two birds with one stone. At the same time, in all aspects of social life, the ID card is indispensable at all times, so it is also a convenience provided by the government to the public, so that people will voluntarily get the ID card and join the network, because it is indeed useful. Another feature of this approach is that it unifies the various document systems and makes one card multi-purpose. With one ID card, such as a driver's license, no other documents are needed, simplifying the process. The identity system is formally depoliticized, but it has the same function as the politicized identity system. Section 2. Principles of the Factory. I was very unfamiliar with American factories and thus eager to take a tour. I knew that Harvard professor Ezra Vogel had written a book, Japan is Number One, Lessons for America, comparing American corporate management with Japanese corporate management, trying to find out from it the causes of Japan's mind-boggling post-war economic miracle. We were accompanied to the factory by Jack Newman, the former manager of this factory. This plant was a branch of the Procter & Gamble Company in Iowa City. The company, now a worldwide powerhouse, was founded in 1837 as a small factory for candles and soap and was based in Ohio. Today, there is no need for candles, and the company manufactures mainly detergents such as the famous Tide detergent and laundry detergent, and also Crest toothpaste. When I was in Singapore and Hong Kong, I also saw these toothpastes all over the streets. In addition to detergents, the company also produces some food and medicine. The company is fully committed to introducing new products and in recent years has been producing popular diapers. The company, like most companies, continues to innovate and introduce new products in the pursuit of maximum profitability and has more than 50 branch plants and research and development facilities throughout the U.S. The Iowa City plant is just one of more than 50. And the company has operations in 45 countries. This transnational organization is typical of the American economy and is part of the American entrepreneurial spirit. American businesses are willing to open branches at home and abroad whenever possible and pay close attention to the statistics that come from these activities. Multinational corporations, too, often compete with each other for these numbers. When it comes to business, the American mindset is not only focused on making money, but also on fame. Spending money on fame is popular among Americans, and this mentality governs much of their behavior. The company had about 80 employees and sales of $1 million from 1850 to 1859, and by 1930, sales had risen to $2 million. It took almost 70 years to double, and in 1956, sales rose to $1 billion, showing the incredible pace of post-war growth. By the 1980s, the company had 59,000 employees and sales of $10 billion. This rate of increase was phenomenal. Indeed, There is a phenomenon in all economic development. Initial growth is often slow, but after reaching a certain size, it surges. This is true of national and regional development, and it is also true of factory and business development. In terms of countries and regions, Japan is the most obvious example, and most of the newly industrialized regions have experienced this. This factory in Iowa City employs 500 people. 500 people is not a small factory in a more automated factory producing toothpaste, mouthwash, shampoo, and other products. We were greeted by the new manager. The manager had been working in the factory for more than 20 years and came to work in the factory after getting his master's degree, during which he moved to various factories of the company to grow his experience and talent, and then was sent to Saudi Arabia as a manager of a branch factory. After such a process, he was promoted to the manager of this factory. In this plant, a prerequisite to become a middle manager is a master's degree from a university, and it should be in chemistry. Then, in the process of practice, repeatedly hone, and then select from them promising people to assume leadership positions. Ezra Vogel said that in Japanese management, promotions are slow. In the United States, promotions are rapid. In this manager's case, it is the opposite. This ensures that the person promoted to manager has management experience and a talent, and at the same time knows the business. For the development of a good manager, a diploma and practice are indispensable. The management style of this factory aroused our interest. On the wall of the parlor hangs a frame with a very interesting message, which is transcribed as follows. Each of us is an owner of the company. We should abide by the following principles. We will operate safely at all times. We will provide a safe working environment. We will work with honesty and integrity. We will care for each person as an individual. We will act in a respectable and trustworthy manner. We will dominate ourselves and our work, and will pursue ourselves to excellence. We will work together for common goals and long-term advancement. We will recognize that the needs of both the business and the individual are important. We will work for both. We will understand our business and support it continuously. We will make smart use of manpower. We will develop and maintain the necessary expertise and flexibility. We will provide effective training to implement the work. We will encourage and support personal growth. We will look for opportunities that inspire personal growth. We will repay fairly. We will recognize the contribution of individuals to the business. We will communicate effectively. People will get the information they need. Decisions will be made by the person with the best information about each situation. We will encourage innovation and knowledge and will learn from successes and failures. We will be a responsible group of citizens in our community. Iowa City Branch, 1986, November. This is a very interesting corporate statement. It was formulated in November 1986 and seems to be less in line with the traditional entrepreneurial spirit, with more emphasis on the call to action and on being one with the company, similar to the Japanese entrepreneurial spirit. But at the same time, it places great emphasis on the traditional spirit, the status of the individual. From a historical point of view, it also reflects the extent to which the conflict between entrepreneurs and workers has been reconciled. Such a provision would have been unthinkable in the West 50 years ago. The latest changes in the capitalist system today deserve attention. On the other hand, the development of science and technology has made the process of production regulations seem insignificant, such as not to be late, not to finish early, to complete the number of products, to ensure quality, etc. We will call these regulations hard regulations. That is, the regulations used to regulate the production process. In a society where production is not developed, this is essential. Marx could have given many examples when he wrote Capital, and here is why. In societies with advanced production, automation, electrification, and electronics make these regulations redundant, while soft regulations become important. Soft regulations mainly harmonize people's mental and psychological state. Each part of the automated assembly line is forced to be obeyed by each worker. We saw multiple assembly lines in this factory and the speed was dizzying. The workload of the workers is enormous. This is called dehumanizing coercion. Psychologically speaking, dehumanizing coercion is easier to accept than humanizing coercion. Marcuse's analysis of contemporary capitalism is worth exploring, especially when it comes to the changes in people's psychology caused by modern mass production. The question of how to reconcile people's psychological and spiritual states becomes a crucial one. This convention contains a lot of Maslow's psychology, which seems to be clear at a glance. Thanks to automation, management has become easier, and with the right to terminate employees, the whole management seems more effective. A look at the people who have been sacked from this factory shows how modernization has facilitated management. The retired manager told us that some of the people who were dismissed were stealing from other people's clothing boxes or not paying in the self-service stores. These are non-productive reasons. The development of capitalism has used technology to resolve the conflicts that may arise between labor and management over technology. This is a condition for both the easing of social conflicts and the development of business. The undemocratic process of American business has been technologized and automated. In Marcuse's words, it has been rationalized. What remains is to reconcile people's inner worlds, but it seems difficult to reconcile people's inner worlds because the rationalization of what is irrational is constantly and quietly suppressing people's minds, and this process will intensify with the development of modern science and technology. This will be a difficult problem for Western society for a long time. Section 3. The enterprise is not democratic. I was a guest at a friend's house and had dumplings. In America, this is a high-class treat. After arriving in the United States surrounded by hamburgers, hot dogs, and fried potatoes, people will feel that eating dumplings and squash is a premium luxury. Many Chinese have lived in the United States for many years, but are still not used to eating Western food. This is probably also a kind of Chinese bad nature. During the meeting, we talked about part-time jobs. My friend's wife had worked in many places. In order to survive, she couldn't help working. The first thing she said was, "Working is really exhausting. I have cried several times. I really can't protest. The problem I am interested in is not whether I am tired or not, but how to manage it in the workforce, and how people are forced to work and made to feel tired." She said the management is extremely strict. In factories, enterprises, and other departments, the supervisor is the absolute authority. Some supervisors are so fierce that everyone is afraid. She now works part-time on campus and is responsible for cleaning the school building. She starts work at 5 a.m. and finishes at 1 p.m. every day, because she has to clean the classrooms when the school is less crowded. She says the supervisors are very strict and tell her what to do and how thorough to be in each job. Everything is clearly defined and detailed. The supervisor was responsible for checking her work, and if it didn't meet the requirements, he would write a note to the worker to redo it. If not, they will be fired. The supervisor will appear in front of the workers anytime and anywhere. When the overseer comes, there is no permission. As long as he sees someone resting or talking and gossiping, they will be found to talk and warned. Once again, they will be sent away. In front of the overseer, absolutely, the employees have to obey. There is a layer above the supervisor. There is also a layer below the supervisor. There is a team of people who are responsible for the cleaning of the entire building. They then assign the work to subordinates. For the work assigned, the person below must complete it, and if they feel it is unfair, they can theoretically talk to their supervisor, and if talk doesn't work, they can find their supervisor's supervisor. But in the meantime, the work assigned to you must be completed, and if not completed, you may be fired. Therefore, in terms of the entire organization of economic activities, the control is very strict. This is the reason for its high productivity on the one hand, and an important condition for the self-organization of its social life on the other. Another noteworthy factor is the convenience that modernization has brought to management. The friend's wife said that the supervisors carry walkie-talkies and are always in contact with the managers further up the hierarchy. The supervisors can receive instructions from their superiors while making their rounds. In addition, in some buildings, there are camera lenses so that every move of the workers is visible. The most powerful force is money, because once fired, it is also very difficult to find a job. The new employer is going to ask why the original job is not being done. There is a possibility of calling the original employer of the person applying for the job. In this American society, if you cannot find a job, life will be very difficult. The pressure of life, the magic of money, and the power of management all drive people to do their best and to be careful. To do it, you have to put in real effort and be realistic. This strict management in the social circle of life is an integral part of the organic functioning of society. Private businesses and corporations manage most of the economic functioning mechanisms of society. The public sector is essentially managed in this way as well. The most important force is the square measure of money. The power of money is irresistible. But not all money creates such a power. Money creates power only when it reaches a certain amount. Whenever you work, you can get a higher pay. For example, washing dishes for $3 to $6 per hour. If you wash dishes for 10 hours and take the average, you can earn $40, which is almost 160 RMB at the official price. Of course, the high and low wages are not fully explained by the amount of income or from the comparison with the wages of workers in other countries, but must be linked with the proportion of expenditure and the inflation rate to see more clearly. If it were only $1 per hour, most people probably wouldn't take how they work seriously. As long as they work, most of them have a better salary. This makes him reluctant to lose his job, but to not lose his job he has to work hard. This way, society has a strong coordinating force and does not need the government to coordinate. Only after a certain threshold of labor conflict or social tension is exceeded will the government intervene. Society is managed through the power of money, with little talk of ideological education. Of course, we can say that this ensures that the capitalists exploit the workers. In fact, capitalists and businesses are all about getting profits, and this method of management ensures that they get there. In fact, this spirit of management is not only reflected in the economic sphere, but also in the public sector of government. Other institutions of society follow the same pattern. This kind of management creates a mechanism, strict and efficient management in social and economic affairs. It should be said that this constitutes a basic condition for its political democracy, because the specific area of political rule is very limited and most of it is encompassed by the supra-political activities of private enterprises, where turmoil and ups and downs do not touch the whole society. In countries where institutions and power are relatively centralized, on the other hand, political or policy changes move the whole body of a nation. The American approach to management is not the same as the Chinese tradition. American management is rigid and strict. Chinese tradition is about flexibility and mobility so as to appear humane. Americans consider the former to be natural, and the Chinese consider the latter to be natural. A Taiwanese who was second in command in an American company told me that he made it clear to the Americans that he was Chinese and was willing to follow the Chinese approach to management, and if his American counterparts did not cooperate, he had to take the American approach and was at the mercy of it all. In a sense, this shows that it is difficult for Chinese people to accept the American management method, and they may feel psychologically unbalanced and may not be able to coordinate interpersonal relationships. It is worth exploring what path Chinese society should take to create a better organizational mechanism for political development. Section 4. Human Services. Social services, or human services, is the dominant element in contemporary Western social welfare policy. I have always felt that social welfare is a stabilizing mechanism that cannot be ignored in Western societies, and it has resolved various conflicts that were difficult to resolve in the past. The inhuman phenomena of capitalist society depicted and criticized by Marx, Engels, and Lenin have now been resolved by the government, naturally. Such an ending came about only after social contradictions had intensified. However, once this mechanism is formed, it will have an unanticipated effect on the stability and continuity of the entire social system. I went to visit a county human services agency. When I walked into the agency, I saw some people waiting to be received. They appeared to be poor people, some pregnant women, some mothers with children. We were greeted by F, the director of the agency. These types of human service organizations are found in all states. Let's dissect the organizational structure of Iowa. There is a Department of Human Services at the state level, and 8 districts below the state, each of which is divided into a number of counties. This county is in the Cedar Rapids district. At the state level, there is a commissioner in charge of the Department of Human Services who is subordinate to the governor, and there is also a Human Services Commission. At the state level, there are 3 divisions: Veterans Administration, Mental Health, and Social Services, which are responsible for proposing policies, organizing programs, and providing services. There is also a Community Services Division headed by a Deputy Commissioner which manages refugee, volunteer, district, and county offices. An Organizational Planning Division, also headed by a Deputy Commissioner which manages communications, program development, and program coordination. And a Management and Budget Division which manages finance, legal affairs, personnel, training, program evaluations, and other matters. The Human Services Commission sets policy and recommends how the Department of Human Services should work. The Department of Community Services manages 8 district agencies and 146 local offices. What are the goals of the Department of Human Services? The Department of Human Services' own literature indicates to provide human services to Iowans who are experiencing personal, economic, or social problems. The department's primary responsibility is to promote the welfare of Iowans by helping individuals and families become self-supporting. This goal was set with a guiding philosophy that we can analyze. A good family is the foundation for the growth and well-being of all individuals, so the Department of Human Services focuses on promoting family unity and human development. Services should be provided in a manner that protects the private domain, privacy, promotes the dignity of the individual, and enables individuals to have full control over their own lives. As you can see, this goal is deeply infected by the American spirit, and its role is, of course, to promote and preserve it. What does human services include? Services for people who are incapable of taking care of themselves, and services for the mentally ill, which is what any society would do. It is noteworthy that it focuses more on the social problems caused by human beings, while concentrating on resolving these conflicts. We can look at several areas. One major aspect of its services is the distribution of food stamps to provide food for those who do not have jobs or income. Food stamps may arise from a variety of problems, such as unemployment, early pregnancy, etc. The agency also takes care of young women with early pregnancies and helps single mothers by encouraging them to go back to school and finish their studies. And then there is the care of abused children. Although the United States is a very civilized country, to say the least, there is a lot of child abuse going on. Miss F told us that last year they had 100 documented cases of child abuse here, and 2 became permanently disabled. Many children are crippled by being beaten. Then there is the care of abused adults, mostly women. Americans are known to beat their wives. The agency also provides medical funding. In particular, its services in social issues act as a buffer, so that forces that might otherwise impact the social system are diminished at this point. Its social function speaks for itself. Social services play a role that legal and political regulation cannot. Legal and political regulation is effective within the limits of reason. The desperate people in society tend to lose their rationality, and they do not heed the normal means of regulation. The role of social services is to keep people within the bounds of rationality and not to make them go out of their way. Because social services have such a wonderful function, government investment is also significant. The countervailing theory, of course, is that social conflicts have reached such a level that investment is necessary. Let's look at the fiscal report for the Cedar Rapids district. In fiscal year 1987, financial expenditures for child assistance were $168 million. Food stamp expenditures were $108 million, and medical assistance amounted to $412 million, a ratio that is easy to calculate for a district with a total population of 430,000. It is possible to look at it in more detail. Let's look at the county, population of about 16,000, almost desolate compared to China. In fiscal year 1987, nearly $320,000 was spent on child support. Unemployed parent fees, $63,000. Food stamps, $270,000. Medical support, over $140,000. State supplemental aid, $60,000. Temporary emergency food support, $76,000. Adoption services, $200,000. Purchased services, $100,000. Child support, $160,000. Administrative costs and salaries, $140,000. And administrative expenses, $9,500. Adoption services, $200,000. Purchased services, $100,000. Child support, $160,000. Administrative costs and salaries, etc., $140,000. And administrative expenses, $9,500. The total cost of all these items is $2.7 million, and the total cost to the state in this area is $839 million. That's a staggering figure. This is one way of looking at the social problems that are piling up. 57% of this financial cost comes from the federal government and 43% from the state government. Since social services play a vital role in social stability, this money cannot be left out. Imagine what it would be like to stop the social services program as a whole. However, this expenditure is increasingly becoming a heavy burden on taxpayers, and the debate around it will grow stronger and stronger. That said, one can trace this service back to England in the 16th century. It is said to have been a practice in England around 1500 to reserve a portion of the land to care for the poor. This legend also came to America with the Mayflower ship, explains F. That may be true, but the more important question is, why were there poor people? Because when the Mayflower arrived, there was not a clear distinction between the rich and the poor. The system that produces the poor also produces the power to delegitimize itself. Rulers must find ways to transform that power. It is not difficult to look at the history of the United States after World War II and come up with such an answer. Many people strongly advocate cutting these costs, but when it comes to putting it into action, everyone is afraid to act. The Human Services Program has become an inseparable part of the social system, and without it, it would be unbalanced. The real problem is that American society has not stopped creating the forces of denial, but has instead produced more and more of them, which human services can only transform, not eliminate. In the long run, this function will one day reach its limits, but for the United States there is no other choice, a choice that has to be made to prevent possible political upheaval. As with any society, no society has the capacity to solve all the problems of all people. If a society is to pursue long-term stability, this should be built to maximize the mechanisms that can solve social and individual challenges. For many societies, the cause of the crisis is not in the system, but in something very common, whether people can be fed and clothed. Section 5. Coca-Cola Headquarters. Coca-Cola is one of the biggest companies in the world. In recent years, it has also gained a huge market in China and has become a household name. Coca-Cola is used as a typical example when discussing overconsumption. Perhaps this refers to the can, not the drink inside. People all over the world are embracing Coca-Cola. I want to look at the organization of American society from this world-famous company. The headquarters of Coca-Cola is located in the city of Atlanta. Such a well-known company, in fact, the headquarters of the office is not very large. An old building 15 stories high and a newly built building. In a city of skyscrapers, Coca-Cola can be considered inconspicuous, but this is the place where people command Coca-Cola around the world. The title page of the 1987 annual report of Coca-Cola's headquarters reads, "The spirit of Coca-Cola is to sell beverages to a thirsty world, with more than 500 million people drinking Coke every day." There is no mention of money here. In fact, the spirit of Coca-Cola is to make a profit by selling beverages. Let's look at the company's finances for the year 1987. Total operations of more than $7.6 billion, probably more than the gross national product of many small countries. Total operating income of more than $1.3 billion, and a net income of more than $900 million. Coca-Cola's growth from a small workshop to the massive multinational corporation that it is today, across 5 continents, is a path shared by many large companies. Today, Coca-Cola is present in 155 countries around the world, and the company accounts for 44% of the world's soft drink sales. The company employs 17,000 people. The global Coca-Cola system employs 500,000 full-time employees and 500,000 part-time employees. Coca-Cola directs this army of 1 million people around the world. When you think about it, does it make political sense or have a broader meaning? I visited the Coca-Cola headquarters. We were accompanied by the PR lady, who seemed to have some connection to the earliest Coca-Cola family. In the Coca-Cola office building, there are a number of valuable paintings hanging, both modernist and classical style. It is a policy of the Coca-Cola Company to collect artworks so that they will be more valuable in a few years. In the lobby of the office, the flags of 155 countries and territories are hung, indicating that Coca-Cola has penetrated the markets of these places. Next to it was an electronic display board that automatically showed the price of Coca-Cola stock on the New York Stock Exchange. As Coca-Cola's sales were booming, the stock price was rising and gaining momentum. The company's employees generally bought shares of their own company as well. The corridor also displays a number of Coca-Cola advertisements from the 1930s and 40s, many of which feature a voluptuous girl in various poses, presumably a well-known singing actress or dancer of the time. Professor Shi Xiaochong said that these advertisements were available in Shanghai before the liberation. The company also displayed below gifts from branch plants around the world. We saw a gift from the Coca-Cola factory in Xiamen, China. The tour guide took us to the office of the former chairman of the board, which I was told is not normally open to visitors. In this office, regardless of other kinds of gifts, only the wall hanging on the autographed photos of several U.S. presidents is enough to illustrate the status of the Coca-Cola Company. Americans attach great importance to this honor. Celebrity photos on the wall is an honor. This, I'm afraid, is the biggest human flaw, the world's common problem. When Coca-Cola made a fortune, in addition to expanding its reproduction, it donated a significant portion of its funds to educational and academic institutions. This is of most interest to me. One university around Atlanta, Emory University, has received a lot of money from Coca-Cola and has grown rapidly over the years. During our visit to the university, the president told us that the school had taken off in the past few years thanks to Coca-Cola's sponsorship. Indeed, a beautiful new building was erected on the campus. The university has become rich enough to spend a lot of money on famous professors and to attract good students by awarding scholarships. Large corporations have a tradition of donating large sums of money to academic institutions and foundations. This is, of course, regulated by government tax policy. We can look at the Brookings Institution, see Chapter 10, Section 2, the Brookings Institution. Of the Brookings Institution's 1987 finances, government appropriations accounted for only 8%, while private donations amounted to 39%, dues and book income 31%, and grants 27%. This does not give a quantitative idea, so let's look at the dollar amounts. Government, $450,000. Private donations, $6 million. Dues and book income, $4.85 million, and grants, $4.1 million, for a total of $15.4 million. This is the income a think tank receives. With such a mechanism, how can a think tank not be developed? If all the think tanks were to be covered by the government, I am afraid that something would soon go wrong. One is that it may not be able to produce ideas because if the government pays for it, the government can influence it. Another is that financially the government cannot afford such a large pool of ideas. If there is only one or a few think tanks left, I am afraid that there will not be a real competition and contest of ideas, and it will not create a situation where ideas are flowing. This leads to another issue that deserves attention: the political significance of the megacorporations I mentioned earlier. Coca-Cola manages nearly 1 million people, manages hundreds of plants inside and outside the United States, and actually governs those people. Add up the number of people managed by each multinational or private company in the United States, and you will see what this means in terms of political management. For if all these companies and factories belonged to the government and needed to be specifically managed by the government would add many burdens. In terms of management principles, the government also does not have such a large amount of energy. In a capitalist society, private enterprise pursues its own goals and will govern by all means at its disposal, while the role of government is to regulate private enterprise. This completes the dualization of the regulation of people, the self-organizing system of society, and the self-organizing system of government. The governmental system only regulates the self-organized system of society from above, but does not get caught up in it, and thus the burden of government is not heavy. The self-organized system of society has a set of rules, procedures, and operations, and they operate in a stable manner. Changes in politics often do not affect the functioning of this set of mechanisms. They drive the functioning of the social system while pursuing their own goals in their operation. This is the basis of a political system, or rather of a political system like the United States. It is precisely in these two areas that the role of large corporations in the United States lies. This non-economic role is not realized by the large corporations themselves. If they were consciously doing these things, it would be a different political picture, I'm afraid. Steady state. Coca-Cola grew out of a ramshackle workshop, as did other large companies. At a certain level of this process, political institutions and social systems tend to stabilize. This is the relationship between politics and economics. Section 6. God on Earth. Religion, or religious life, in American society is a fundamental part of social life. Religion is an inseparable part of the lives of many people. An understanding of America cannot be separated from an understanding of American religious life. When you enter any community, urban or rural, you are bound to see churches of all sizes and shapes. The number of churches in a city is often surprisingly large. Not all Americans are religious, and it's even fair to say that not all churchgoers are religious. People who are religious and people who go to church are very different. But whatever the psychological and social motivations, they come into the church. Christmas is more an expression of religious life and religious sentiment. Christmas commemorates the coming of Jesus Christ, but the holiday has long been secularized and has become a folk holiday. It is also a religious holiday, and religious organizations organize various events during this period. The same applies to non-religious organizations. I went to a special concert by a city symphony orchestra on Christmas Eve. These concerts are held once a year and sing roughly the same songs, all hymns, in praise of the Savior. In this concert, Handel's Messiah, meaning Savior, was performed. When one of the songs, Hallelujah, was sung, the whole audience stood up, as has been the custom since George II. Hallelujah, or praise the Lord. The kingdom of this world becomes the kingdom of the Lord and Christ, and the King of Kings and Lord of Lords will rule over us from generation to generation. Many Americans are psychologically dependent on religion or religious organizations, which has created a situation where religion is powerful in American society. Americans are religious, but it varies greatly. There are devout believers who remain true believers and worship God with great seriousness and reverence. They go to church every Sunday to watch Mass or to worship and actively participate in the various activities organized by the church. In their family life, they also continue the traditional family religious life. I was once a guest in the home of a prominent financial man. They had a prayer during the evening meal, and the guest of honor held hands while his daughter read a prayer in Latin. Some people also go to church every Sunday, but they are not religious. They are so used to going to church that they have to go every time, and if they don't, they feel like they are missing something. I discussed this topic with a theology professor. He said that not many people are really religious, and that most people who go to church are not religious, but they can find a way of life in church, form a circle of life, see friends and acquaintances, talk, and have a community life. Also, some people maintain a close relationship with the church because of the church's charitable services. The church conducts a lot of charitable activities, and many poor people and people in need benefit from the church. So naturally, they also maintain a closer relationship with the church. In short, there are a multitude of people who come into the church, but differ in their feelings, perceptions, and purposes. An important piece of the reason why religion has had such a powerful influence lies in the secularization of religion. Religious activities are not so much mysterious and are very different from the religious activities and religious organizations of the Middle Ages. Many of the large modern churches are very modern and do not have the style of the old church with its spires and towers, but have a modern mood. Many modern churches have become the subject of debate. The churches are richly decorated with green pine and green leaves. God and Christ probably dare not think about it. Religious organizations are also using modern means of communication to spread their religion. Several major radio stations broadcast prayer programs on Sundays, reaching millions of households. Prominent priests conduct the services, and much of what is preached concerns the worries and needs of each person's daily life. Sometimes it is about how one can be successful. Sometimes it is about why one should get along with others, and so on and so forth. All the topics are linked to quotations from the Bible. When the Olympics were held in Seoul, a famous pastor held a prayer in Seoul, broadcast live to the United States with the theme, "Before you ask, I will meet you." These are the words of the Bible. The pastor said that the reason why there was such good weather in Seoul during the Olympics was because God fulfilled this desire of people before they asked for it, and so on and so forth. The modern mass media have spread religious culture to the four corners of the earth in a way that the missionaries of the 17th and 18th centuries could not match. Because of the power of the mass media, people unconsciously accepted religious culture by ear. Another reason for the strong appeal of religion is the large number of charitable activities organized by religious organizations. Religious organizations have their own philanthropic endeavors, which are nonprofit and funded by gifts from believers. Religious organizations are often very wealthy because many believers donate large amounts of money to the church in order to save their hearts or demonstrate their piety. These monies are not taxed and are at the disposal of the church. Churches organize various charitable activities for the relief of the poor. For example, a church serves free lunch every Thursday, and anyone can go and eat it. During the holidays, such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, churches arrange for students from foreign countries to be guests in American homes. The church also tends to organize trips at a very low cost to stay outside the homes of the congregation. The church does a lot of activities such as these. In a privately owned country like the United States, where the government has limited responsibility, many people without support have come into the arms of the church. The church, along with other types of organizations, attracts this class of people, which is an important aspect of the organizational structure of American society. Religion in the United States is also diverse and varied, with a wide variety of religions and names. Americans are generally not concerned about what the difference is between one religion and another. They are not sure what the essential difference is. They just follow one religion, and that is enough. There are so many religious organizations that sometimes a few people can claim to be of a different religion. Freedom of religion is constitutionally protected. Anyone who declares that he or she has a religion cannot be prohibited by anyone else. Even if one day a person says that the religion he founded believes that bees are the angels of the world, no one else can do anything but disbelieve him. Tragedies caused by evil religions are not unheard of. For example, the People's Temple religion founded by Jim Jones ended up forcing more than 900 believers to commit mass suicide in Guyana, which shook the world for a while. Religious organizations and religious activities do not have only a narrow meaning, they also have a broad social meaning. The large and active religious organizations and the numerous and extensive religious activities constitute an important social mechanism in themselves. This mechanism connects and coordinates thousands of people and thus has a social function that cannot be underestimated. To say that it has a social function is to say that they play a role in public life. Robin W. Lovin's analysis in Religion and American Public Life is that A. Religion can play a role in maintaining order. It ensures a pattern of authority and the necessary obedience of the population, allowing organized human life to continue. A society without religion is a society on the verge of chaos, and religion admonishes people to obey God and the order of the world. B. Religious life maintains and protects people's freedom. The greatest contribution of religious life to public life is freedom. Religion in the United States had a different course of development from that of Europe, which came to this great land believing in freedom and came here to escape religious persecution. Religious communities do their best to protect their own freedom, but also they protect the freedom of society. For without social freedom, religious freedom would not exist. Religious freedom gives people a belief that motivates them to pursue freedom in public life as well. C. Religious life promotes social justice. Because religion spreads the gospel of God and propagates equality, this spirit promotes public life and political culture. These 3 points, he argues, are the 3 basic relationships between religion and public life. Looking at the functions of religion in detail, we can say that Lowen's opinion is not comprehensive. It is obvious that religion has a social function, but the problems of religion are also obvious and cannot be denied. The problem is that in different cultures and social conditions, such functions can be greater or lesser. To summarize these social functions, from the point of view of socio-political management, it can be said that religion has 3 basic functions. The capability of constituting a strong system of social organization that can independently govern the people who belong to it according to its own principles. The ability to constitute an ethical value system that guides and coordinates people's behavior. The ability to form a powerful radiating system that can spread its activities and ideas to the community as a whole. Of course, the above 3 functions can only perform positive social functions under certain conditions, otherwise they are often detrimental to society. In many societies, religion is the main cause of social unrest. For religion to perform a positive social function, 2 prerequisites are needed. One of them is the depoliticization of religion. Religion cannot be the instrument of politics or become the master of politics. The situation in the Middle Ages was the latter, manifested as a kind of foolish tyranny. Some modern countries practice the former, manifested as a kind of authoritarian foolishness. The second is the non-superstition of religion. Religion cannot become superstition. If it becomes superstition, there will be the absurdity of burning Bruno, sending boys and girls to the river gods, and seeking gods to tap unseen mystical energies. Superstition and religion are 2 different fields. Religion lies more in the cultivation of personal moral sentiments, the pursuit of self-discipline and devotion. Superstition often requires personal devotion to an idea that does not require a rational process, only more blindness and fear of self. Where there is no real separation between religion and superstition, religion cannot perform a positive social function. A society with a set of religious organizations to coordinate the activities of a significant portion of the population, to establish a set of moral norms and values for a significant portion of the population, may be generally beneficial to community life. Many great thinkers have spoken of the indispensability of religion in an ideal society, such as Plato, Aristotle, Rousseau, and others. A society without religious life would lose an important self-governing mechanism, and the task of the political system would be even heavier. Where religions exist, the role of the political system is to coordinate them and not allow them to transgress common norms. The fact that religion is so developed in the United States seems at odds with the highly developed science and technology of American society. This is a mystery of human rationality. In fact, Americans are very rational about religion just as they are about science and technology. It is difficult for a religion to develop into a superstition in such an American environment. In some other countries, the absence of high-tech development often leads to superstition. The high level of development of science and technology constrains the potential for irrationalization of religion. Society behaves as a strange process. The more knowledge advances and the less dangerous religion becomes, the more active religion becomes. Naturally, anything can be an object of exploitation, and religion is no exception. Recently, the American television press focused on this scandal of a televangelist pastor. His life became a major scandal when he fornicated with a woman, while embezzling tens of thousands of donations from his followers for personal gain. This incident shows that religion can be beneficial or detrimental to society. A dilemma that confronts any society with religion at all times. End of chapter 8.